told your friend you're not okay. And tell me why
Hello, K-pop update fan. Ready for a story that's shaking the world? Because what happened that night wasn't just a concert, but an event that's still being talked about everywhere to this day. The night didn't open with thumping music or dazzling lights. Quite the opposite. Everything seemed to slow down, as if the entire stadium were holding its breath simultaneously. The stage lights slowly dimmed. The thousands of spectators suddenly fell silent, and in the long silence, the air became a mixture of tension and wonder. No one knew what was about to happen, but everyone sensed it. Something big was waiting to explode. And then, from the near-inky darkness, a figure emerged. A lone silhouette stepped to the center of the stage. In an instant, the silence collapsed, crushed by screams that echoed throughout the stadium, like waves crashing against the walls of the enormous space. It was a name that always evokes global euphoria, Kim Taehyung. The third concert of the Arirang tour was initially predicted to be just another spectacular performance from BTS. But as soon as Taehyung stepped onto the stage that night, all expectations seemed to be dashed. There was an immediate, drastic change. His aura was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. It wasn't about the outfit or the choreography, but something deeper, more emotional, less defined, but clearly radiating throughout the venue. His movements were suddenly more defined, heavier, as if each step carried a story he'd never told before. His gaze was sharp, not the sharpness of a stage act, but a sharpness that pierced the camera and instantly struck the hearts of anyone watching. Even those in the front rows moved back slightly, not out of fear, but because the energy he radiated truly felt like a wave crashing through their bodies. Many audience members described the moment not as watching the concert, but as physically feeling it. They described a vibration emanating from the stage and transmitting to their seats, to the air, to their chests. That's not hyperbole. Amateur videos circulating show the audience transfixed with a mixture of shock, awe, and disbelief. And within minutes, the world knew. The hashtag about Taehyung immediately trended globally. Videos from every corner of the stadium flooded timelines, and the phenomenon spread faster than any concert had ever seen. Media outlets from various countries began running headlines about his performance, from America, which called it a new standard for modern stage charisma, Japan, which praised it as an artistic performance that transcends cultural boundaries, to South Korea, which critically analyzed its depth. But the highlight of the night wasn't his initial explosion when he appeared, but rather a small movement mid-song. A simple move, executed with incredible intensity. In an instant, the stadium erupted in unison. The cheers weren't just loud. It was like an earthquake shaking the stage floor. Many said that moment changed the entire atmosphere. Even the usually cool and objective international journalists were swept up in admiration. They called the performance one of the best of his career. They praised how he was able to control so many of the audience's emotions with just a glance or a barely perceptible hand gesture. Cameras also captured the expressions of the other BTS members. They stood watching Taehyung with an unreadable gaze, a mix of pride, awe, and perhaps a little shock. This sparked speculation that the night wasn't just a performance, but the point at which an artist reached the pinnacle of their evolution. As the video spread and analysis emerged, the global discussion heated up. Fans analyzed every detail, from the way he walked to the meaning behind his smile. Theories abounded. Was this a sign of a major project? Was Taehyung entering a new era in his artistic journey? Industry analysts also spoke. Many saw tremendous potential for Taehyung to expand more aggressively into international markets, film, fashion, art, global collaboration projects. They cited his ability to capture attention across cultures in a matter of seconds as a rare asset for an artist. But what made all this even more enigmatic was the contrast between his on-stage self and his behind-the-scenes self. According to reports, before he took the stage, Taehyung appeared calm, almost too calm. No hint that he was about to deliver the most intense performance of his career. It was this transformation from backstage to center stage that made the night even more unforgettable. Although the night was over, The city where the concert took place didn't immediately return to its usual calm. Even after the audience left the stadium, the atmosphere remained vibrant, as if the energy unleashed on stage hadn't yet found a place to settle. Outside the venue, dozens of media cameras were still flashing. Thousands of fans were still discussing the moment they'd witnessed, and many weren't ready to leave. Some even sat on the sidewalk rewatching videos of Taehyung, confirming that what they'd just witnessed was real. Meanwhile, backstage, the atmosphere was different but equally intense. Technical crews were running around, HYB staff were busy checking the constantly shifting trending data, and photographers were still trying to capture the best angles of the audience's expressions, still reeling from the shock. Everyone knew they had just been part of something far greater than a regular concert. In one of the backstage rooms, Taehyung sat quietly, his breathing steady, but his eyes held something indescribable, a mix of exhaustion, satisfaction, and a hint of mystery that intrigued anyone. He listened to the still echoing crowd, and a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. No one knew what he was thinking at the time, but it was clear he realized the impact of that night. When the other BTS members entered the room, there was a moment of silence. They exchanged glances before finally smiling and patting Taehyung on the shoulder. There was something different about them that night, a kind of pride that went unspoken. They, too, felt what the world felt, that something had changed. Out there, the internet was buzzing. New hashtags appeared every minute. 5-second clips became discussions that could span dozens of comments. Fans from various countries were analyzing the visuals, dissecting Taehyung's expressions, the way he walked, the way he looked at the camera. Every second of his performance was deemed to have a hidden meaning. Many fans from other countries began to confess that even though they weren't at the concert, they felt the same aura through the screen. Several international K-pop influencers even released reaction videos uploaded shortly after the concert. They all conveyed the same message. Taehyung wasn't just performing, he was bringing something to life that couldn't be described in words. But this phenomenon didn't stop with fans. While the news media continued to cover the event, global entertainment market analysts began gathering data. That night, Taehyung's album sales soared. Streaming of his songs on music platforms skyrocketed. Even search charts for his name soared like a rocket launch. Many said that no other artist could achieve such a surge with just one performance. A few hours later, initial reports from various countries arrived at K-pop Update. Of all the major events they had covered, this was one of the most massive. The editorial team began preparing a special article, complete with a deliberately dramatic headline because they knew the world was hungry for more information about the Taehyung phenomenon. And just as the world was still reeling from the unending excitement of that night, a rumor began to spread. Rumors were that Taehyung's performance that night wasn't just an artistic improvisation. He was said to be preparing something big, something he hadn't revealed to anyone, but it was implied in his every movement and gaze on stage. The rumor spread so quickly that HYB had to verify its sources. Several staff members said that Taehyung had indeed seemed more focused than usual lately. There were days when he would arrive early to practice, spend time alone in the studio, and not say anything about what he was working on. Even more intriguing, some music observers began to theorize that Taehyung was entering a new artistic phase, a darker, more mature, more emotional one. They saw patterns in the way he chose concepts, the way he expressed himself on stage, and the way he let his emotions flow unfiltered. They called it the Transcendence Era. And as usual, the theory snowballed when a foreign journalist quickly picked up on it, adding details that made fans even more convinced that there was something behind Taehyung's enigmatic smile at the end of the concert. Amidst all the excitement, one thing became increasingly clear. The world wasn't just watching. The world was waiting.